Namaste everyone, Jai Hind, welcome to MMK The Eagle View. Today we are going to see a very important topic about a committee which was set up to reform DRDO, Defense Research Development Organization. So this committee was set up last year and it was headed by Professor Vijay Raghavan, who was the Chief Scientific Advisor to the government, and under him, so there was one Deputy Chief of Army Staff, former Deputy Chief of Army Staff, one former Vice Chief of Naval Staff, and one former Air Marshal who was Chief of Integrated Staff, and then DG MP, Professor Manindra Agarwal from IIT Kanpur, and Chairman of SIDM, and then one senior executive from L&T, and one pioneer ISRO scientist, Unikishan Nair. And then we had Radhika, who was the financial advisor to MOD. So this was the core committee which was formed last year to look at the way DRDO functions and to optimize the function of DRDO. The 5 core objectives of this reform committee, Professor Raghavan committee, was to maximize the participation of MSME, academia and startup in all the defense related projects, and to recruit and retain high quality manpower, incentivize good performance, disincentivize poor performance, and also to weed out poor performance. Third was to include NRI and foreign consultants and country to country defense integration projects to develop cutting edge technologies. Fourth was to modernize and reform the complete administrative, procurement and the HR practices of DRDO. And then the last and the final objective, fifth objective, was to rationalize the number of labs, research labs that DRDO holds. So these are the 5 core objectives of which the committee was formed. The committee was on time. It extended its research for another month, and now bits and pieces of this report has come out in open, which is like we can review the actual report later when we get our hands to it, but now let's look at what is that committee's recommendation. So majorly it is a DRDO reforms. DRDO's core users, which is the tri-services, Army, Navy, Air Force, paramilitary forces, the strategic forces, strategic support forces, all these forces do have a certain amount of frustration with DRDO because none of their projects have been completed on time. Almost 90-95% of the projects which they took was not completed on time, and the user trials of most of the technologies which they developed was not up to the mark. And to plug in the gap of the operational readiness, you need certain amount of weapons, equipments, fighter jets, your battle tanks, rockets and missiles to prepare yourself to be battle ready, operational ready. So to plug in that gap, it was always a stopgap arrangement where DRDO developed a system, like for example a fighter aircraft like Tejas, which was developed by HAL, and DRDO had a part of it. So DRDO developed a main battle tank. To plug in those uncompleted portion where they were not able to complete it on time, so we imported like from night sights, we imported guns, we imported radars, we then went and retrofitted in this particular platform to make it operation ready. To have a 2.5 front war, this cannot be a permanent solution to have this fulfilled by the means of jugad or retrofitting something to something else. Everything else has to go by plan, and the plan has to be executed on time. Minor delays are acceptable, but DRDO has been consistently failing in providing timely weapons and equipments technologies to the tri-services. So that's where the PMO under PM Modi directly stepped in for this particular committee. This particular committee was not reporting to the MOD, Ministry of Defense. It was directly supervised by the PMO. After Prime Minister Modi's order that every government institution has to deliver and has to be accountable, so this DRDO reforms was initiated. So now the committee has recommended massive DRDO reforms it wants more private sector role in terms of research and development and innovation part of defense systems, and it wants to create an ecosystem where DRDO continues to remain a primary research development agency. There are private companies or R&D setup, and there are startups which comes out with innovations and stuff, and then we have startup incubators which starts right in the academy. Like we have pioneer institutions like IIT. There are other good private institutions where students of the engineering stream or even the MTech stream, the PG stream, directly go into such innovations and ideas. And it also looks at private players from other countries, friendly nations, startups from other countries to co-partner and to co-create technologies, cutting-edge technologies. So now we are seeing one major reform, that is DRDO currently has around 40 research laboratories across the country. This will now be curtailed, and it will get 10 world-class national level testing facility. It's not going to be a regional affair anymore. It will be a national level testing facility, 10 state of the art instead of 40 research and laboratories which operate at silos. They operate in various silos. Instead of that, we are going to have 10 best-in-class national testing laboratories which can be used by the academia, which can be used by the private players, which can be used by all the stakeholders of the defense production and defense innovation ecosystem. Why this becomes very, very critical is, for example, if you develop a particular component which goes into a missile or which goes into a battle tank. Now this has to be extensively tested before it's put on into actual use. Private companies and startups do not have the muscle, money and place, equipments to create such laboratories. So if you have a laboratory which is at a national level, they can go test their equipments, test their products and move ahead in R&D. If there's something shortcomings in it, they can come back. The issue with metallurgy, they can change it. But for that, you need access to those laboratories. In the current scenario, it is not. It is operating at 40 different locations. One metallurgy report is done at one lab. Its component design is done at some other lab. So this is not feasible. So we are going to do away with 40 research laboratories and come out with 10 state-of-the-art world-class laboratories at national level. The another thing which the committee has noted is DRDO's failure to adhere to project timelines. When you say a project, like most of you have been working in corporate, with my amount of corporate experience, we all drive a project. There is a project charter which happens, multiple stakeholders, there is a review mechanism. Everybody runs towards a project and to meet the deadline and to complete the project on time in full. But that's not the case with DRDO. It works as a typical government company, or you would say a government organization, which is not a right spot to be if you want to aspire yourself as to become a world superpower, at least a top 10 defense equipment exporter, and of course the self-reliance project called Atmanirbhar Bharat. The third sweeping reforms which is recommended is, currently the DRDO chairman also holds the post of Secretary Research and Development. Now DRDO chairman has a overall role of leading the DRDO, getting into various projects, managing the manpower, HR, administration, operations, everything. Now Secretary R&D is purely focused on research and development. One single person playing this dual role have been done away with. Now we will have an exclusive DRO chairman and we will have an exclusive R&D, Secretary for R&D. This secretary need not to be an Indian administrative officer. He would all likely to be a pioneer scientist who has already proven his credentials, his or her credentials. Now the fourth major sweeping reform is that today we have an exam which recruits scientists. They are at certain grade and then they get promoted and someday they become a chief scientist, or one becomes a chief of DRDO. They are doing away with the system of time scale based promotion, or you have a certain pay scale based promotion. To three of scientists in a batch gets promoted, naturally everybody else gets promoted. We are going to do away with this with the committee's recommendation. It is going to be project based manpower. A way an IT company works, where there are certain amount of engineers and technical experts in the bench. They have been called into a project, they deliver a project, based upon the performance of the project, they get their incentive and they get their next bigger project, vice versa, they get demoted as well. So this is a typical system which they are going to have, project based manpower. It is not going to be 100% UPSC, because by doing so, you are actually doing away with the potential lateral recruitment into an organization. So either you recruit scientists, groom them, coach them, and then you need to make update them in terms of their skills and have a talent pool to do your projects effectively. The other way of doing things is to have a lateral entry where you identify a specific skill for a specific project or a project manager, you hire them, and then once the project is completed, they move out, and good performers, excellent performers are retained. So they are going to incentivize and also de-incentivize, and it's going to be a performance based appraisal, and it's going to be accountability. So all the bad performers or poor performers will eventually have to move out of DRDO as per the new recommendation, and they are going doing a major reform on performance accountability. Currently, it's a very unfair thing for me to say that, but practically the people I have interacted who deal with DRDO, it's kind of a government organization which typically works from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. And then if you in one of my conference, IEEE conference in Delhi, when I was interacting with the research scholars, one girl from Patna, she is a research scholar, she said, like, in the middle of the night, I get an idea. That's how this the research scholars and the innovators work. At 3 a.m. I have to rush to the lab before I forget. So I jot it down, I go and I do some coding, programming, whatever she does. But the current scenario prevents her to reach that laboratory because it works on a specific timing as per a government structure. Innovation and invention doesn't work this way. You need to give them the atmosphere for a scientist, for our bright minds to perform. That's what this change actually means. Now, Vijay Raghavan committee, if you see the committee members, they are not purely from DRDO, they are not purely from Indian Administrative Service, where typically an Indian Administrative Service have been the jack of all trades. They will be managing a government company, they will be managing a government factory, they will be managing a government institution, they will be in policy making, and they will be in policy implementation, and they will be people facing, and sometimes they will be internal facing. So this is not going to work. We need to have vertical based subject matter experts in the system. So you have people from the industry, you have people from the services, you have people from academia, you have people from DRDO, and you have one best brain from ISRO as well. So DRDO currently, in the last budget has around 23.5 thousand crore of 23,500 crore of funds allocated to it. It roughly has around 40,000 staff, 30,000 permanent staff from 10,000 people like data entry operators and contractual role, out of which less than 25% are actually from the scientific community. Now this is a big worrying factor. When you have built an organization, you need to have more tooth and less tail. Now this is working the other way. You have less number of scientists and more number of administrative staff. So they are going to have more teeth versus less tail. So this is where the area they are going to cut down on the number of non-scientific staff involved in DRDO. Like your administration, your day-to-day administration, your general procurement, your capital procurement, your real estate maintenance, all this can be outsourced with lots of other government organizations, because this is going to be a very sensitive area. Even if you don't want 100% private participation in this, you have the potential to still outsource it rather than doing it yourself, because your core expertise is going to be research and development and completing the project on time. So less than 25% of scientists is a worrisome fact. Now what DRDO future is going to be? So they are going to be like DARPA. DARPA, in Defense Advanced Research Product Agency, started by US in 1958. At the same time when DRDO was actually started, both organizations have started together with almost the same kind of manpower. DARPA has got a much better budget because it's being a US agency. But if you look at where DARPA has taken the US today, which is the largest arms exporter of the world, and they own almost majority of the cutting edge technologies and patents, unless or until like China reverse engineers it, copies it, but US holds the intellectual capital as far as the defense innovation and exports are concerned. Now, does DARPA own any lab? It doesn't own any lab. Does DARPA own huge assets? It doesn't own huge assets. What it does is, it has a very limited functional experts, technical scientific experts who interact with the US Marines, who interact with the arms lobby, who interact with the users, understand what is needed, they understand what the future warfare is going to be. They plan and think 20 years, 2 decades ahead. And once they identify the need or the problem statement or the prototype, or you can say a statement of case, this further goes to American universities, this further goes to American private universities, research scholars and private startups. They don't do. And then the funding happens from the DARPA, the incubation happens on the DARPA. These people come out with the best of the cutting edge technologies. Later, that's been like, DARPA generally has a user right of say 5 to 7 years, which is exclusively US, no other country can get it. Once they have, with the updated next revolutionary technology, they're going to do away with the old one. So that's how the US defense system works. So we are trying to get a similar arrangement, baby steps here. So this is what they have been projecting. Professor Vijay Raghavan's committee has been projecting. Unlike the previous committees of various committees were formed to reform DRDO, but all the committee reports remained in paper. Hope this is not going to remain in papers, considering PM Modi's personal focus on this particular reform. This is going to get implemented. DRDO has been asked to submit a report on how are they going to implement, if they have any objections for these changes, with a valid statement to justify this. Once that is done, they have no other choice to implement the sweeping reforms, which has been long pending. There is a saying, what got you here will not get you there. We have got here for some reason. Our defense exports have exceeded $2 billion, but this is not enough. It's just a start. The journey has just started. China started like 35 years before. The last 20 years has been a massive push for China because of the same model they have implemented it. The government has to govern. They cannot run research and development companies. It is just not possible. For that, you need to come organizations like ISRO, cultures like ISRO. So cross-cultural exchange with ISRO and private companies, how good they implement the projects is needed. We can't have government employees being unaccountable for quite some time by missing all the deadlines of the project, because this is something to do with a very, very serious thing called national security. We can't have a compromise on that. This is not some other program where you can accept for delays or you can import technologies. This is not going to be that. This is a very, very serious business. It's about our nation's defense and our ambition to be in the top 5 exporters of defense technologies and equipments to the world. If that has to be achieved, we need sweeping reforms. Change is always stressful. It is going to be really stressful for DRDO. But with whatever thing they have done, they have actually given a lot of technologies. They have worked for the nation. We don't have doubts about it. But the only thing is, the organization has to undergo a sweeping reform, and it is going to be painful. It is going to be stressful. But DRDO will be down 5 years to 10 years. It will evolve as one of the most respected agencies like ISRO. So this is a journey which has started. You really require lot of guts. You really require lot of leadership to actually drive this. This is one area which no Prime Minister really wanted to go and touch, because it's something to do with defense. If a war happens and some equipment fails or DRDO is not able to, then the entire blame is going to shift on that particular leader of the government. Prime Minister Modi has taken this drastic and a very bold step of reforming DRDO. We are entering a new era of defense innovations. For that, DRDO continues to remain as a pioneer agency which will have to undergo and evolve itself as one of a professional agency. Hope you like this video. Do like, share and comment, and do give us your feedback about the topics we are speaking about, or if you have anything in mind which you want to discuss, we will do that as well. Soon we will have experts coming into our channel. We have Aditya, who is a foreign relation expert, who's given a wonderful presentation about the India's 5 days, Jaishankar's 5 days visit to Russia, and how well we are partnering and with Russia. Similarly, we'll have more interviews coming up. So I will just leave this responsibility of expanding this channel reach across the globe to our beloved subscribers. Thank you all. Jai Hind.